Welcome to the 6th video in my series on building a straightforward online game using Microsoft SignalR and React. Today, I'm going to show you how to create a TicTacToe game interface with React and TypeScript. I will explain step by step how to create a functioning TicTacToe game interface. In the previous video, we covered how to implement user login and token management in a React application. We created interfaces for the user state and actions, set up a global context and reducer to manage state changes, and implemented functions to refresh tokens and check for expiration. Additionally, we demonstrated how to handle token validation on the backend with an ASP.NET Web API. Finally, we ensured proper intervals for refreshing tokens and validated the entire process by logging in and out of the application. If you're just joining us, I highly recommend watching the earlier videos in this series to catch up. Before we start, let me show you the outcome of this video. I'll be building the TicTacToe game interface. We have a grid of 9 boxes and 2 players, player X and player O. One player takes a turn at a time. As soon as a player matches 3 of their symbols, the game ends and that player wins. If the game is a draw, it will also indicate that. This is what TicTacToe is all about. In this video, I will explain how to create this interface. This is a simple user interface build. There are lots of awesome video tutorials on YouTube on how to create a TicTacToe game interface. But our goal is to create an online TicTacToe game with Microsoft SignalR. Let me quickly explain again what the final outcome looks like. I have already explained the outcome of the series in the introduction video. If you're new to this series, please watch that video to get a simple idea. Any user can register for the game and log in. Then, logged-in users can see other online users and play in a private room. This is what we're going to implement as our final outcome of the series. Let's jump into today's coding. Move to our React application components, then to the TicTacToe folder, and create a new file named TicTacToe.tsx. Let's create a new component named TicTacToe. This returns a React functional component. Next, I'll render this component inside the home component. Let's move to the home file and render the TicTacToe component there. Save the files and let's check the UI in the browser. You can see the TicTacToe text displayed, which means the component rendered correctly on the home page. Now, let's implement the TicTacToe interface. The game has 3 rows and 3 columns, making up a total of 9 boxes. I will label these boxes from 0 to 8, like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's create a CSS file for styling, called style.module.css. Import the style classes from the style module. I'll name the main container style class as TicTacToe container. Copy this style class name and paste it into the style file as a new class. Next, I will add a new nested div for the TicTacToe buttons and give this div the class name of TicTacToe button container. Inside that, I'll add a new row div, with the class name of TicTacToe buttons. Each row has 3 buttons, so let's add 3 buttons to the first row. Save the files and check if the buttons are rendered on the page. Let's add some styles. For the main TicTacToe container, I'll set a minimum width of 200 pixels and a maximum width of 400 pixels. Set the width to 100%. Display to flex. And flex direction to column. Justify content is center. With relative positioning. Now, we need to style the outer container of the TicTacToe component. The TicTacToe component renders inside the home component. I'll add this div a responsive width of 40% and a responsive height of 70%, with display set to flex. Move to the TicTacToe style sheet. Add styles to the button container. Set the margin top to 20 pixels, height to 60%. Display to flex. Flex direction to column. And justify content to center. For the button rows, give a height of 33.33%. And a width of 100%. Inside the TicTacToe component, copy the first row and paste it twice to create 3 rows. For the home component, I'll indicate this page as the home page. Let's move to the home page. Cut all of this and add a new main div. Give this div bootstrap styles of display flex and justify content around. Inside this div, add a new nested div to render page content, and add simple home text. Then, paste the cut TicTacToe component div after this div. Now it's on top of the page. Set align items to the center of the main div. Move to TicTacToe component. These row buttons have the same functionality and styles, so I will create a new component for them. I will name this component Square, and it will return a React functional component. Inside that function, I will return a button. Next, I will replace these row buttons with the newly created square component. This square component will accept two properties, button content and the click event handler. To implement these properties, I will create a new property interface called Square Props. The first property is value, which will accept a string value. The second property is onClick, which will accept a mouse event handler for the HTML button element. Let's add this property interface to the square component. The button's onClick handler will be passed into our onClick method. I think I mistakenly added the mouse event for the onClick property. It should be mouse event handler. Let's correct that. Render the value property as button content. Let's add some styles to this button. So I will give the style class name as square. My bad, this is a spelling mistake. Square needs to be corrected to square. Let me quickly correct that. Next, we need to pass these properties into our square component. For the value, let's use some string. For the onClick property, let's pass a click handler function called handleSquareClick. Let's implement this handler function. To identify which button was clicked, I will pass its index as an input to this handler function. So this function will accept a number as input. I will call that parameter getCurrentNumber. To check that the square button functions correctly, let's log this button index. Let's copy these properties and paste them into all other square components. Next, I will pass the square index number to the handleClick function. Let's check that click event. Click the square and you can see that the index number is logged in the console. This square click handler only belongs to the TicTacToe component, so I will move it inside the TicTacToe component. Let's initialize a new state variable to handle the state of the squares. We have a total of 9 squares, and initially, all of them are filled with empty strings. When a user clicks a square, we need to update the state to reflect the user's action. To achieve this, we initialize a state variable squares with an array of 9 empty strings, representing the 9 squares in the TicTacToe grid. The setSquares function is used to update this state. Next, let's add this squares array to the square component value. Squares, 0, this refers to the first element in the squares array. Next, quickly give the other values as well. Indexes are 0 to 8. This squares array will hold the content of the square component. If the square has been clicked and marked by a player, either X or O, this value will reflect that mark. Initially, this array is filled with empty strings, indicating that all squares are empty at the start of the game. Next, I will quickly give some styles to the square component. Font size of 2.5 VW. Float to left. The width of 33.33%. And height 100%. Margin right to -1 pixels and margin top to -1 pixels. Cursor set to pointer. Cursor set to pointer. And border 1 pixel solid and font weight as bold. Now it's looking good. Next, we need to update the square state when the user clicks. So, first, we need to check the current state of the square values. To do that, I will copy the initial squares array to a new variable called cpysquares. When the user clicks, we need to update the content of the square to X or O to indicate the clicked user. So, we need another state variable to track whose turn it is. I will declare a new state variable is xTurn, a boolean indicating whether it's player X turn. When it is player X turn, update the squares element to X, otherwise, update it to O. Let's declare the isXturn boolean state variable. Const isXturn. Set isXturn. Use state hook, type of boolean. Initialize it to true to indicate that the first turn is player X turn. After setting the value of the clicked square to X or O, depending on isXturn. Toggle the isXturn state to switch turns. Update the squares state with the new array by calling setSquares with cpysquares. Let's check these updates. You can see that the click event changes the square content to X or O. But now the user can click again and again to change the state of the square. We don't want to update the square after the first turn. To prevent this, if there is already a value in the square, let's just return without updating. Now the square can't change the value again after the first update. Next, we need to check for the winner of the game. To find a winner, I will add a new function called getWinner. This function accepts array of squares. I will add the winning patterns to an array. This array represents all the possible ways to win in a standard tic-tac-toe game. Each subarray within winning patterns contains 3 indices that correspond to the positions in the 3x3 grid. If a player's symbols, either X or O, occupy all 3 positions in any of these patterns, that player wins the game. First, horizontal winning patterns. Next, vertical winning patterns. Diagonal winning patterns. These are all the possible winning patterns in the tic-tac-toe game. Next, we need to find out if there is a winner or not. To do that, we need to check if the squares array contains the above winning patterns. In the for loop, I will iterate over each pattern in the winning patterns array. For each pattern, the indices are destructured into variables x, y, and z. This makes it easier to reference these positions in the squares array. The condition checks if the value at squares x is equal to the value at squares y. And the value at squares y is equal to the value at squares z. If all these conditions are true, it means all 3 positions in the current pattern are occupied by the same player, X or O, indicating a win. The function then returns the value, squares x, which is either X or O. If none of the patterns result in a win, the function returns an empty string, indicating that there is no winner yet. When starting the game, all of the values in the squares array are empty strings. So initially, all are equal. To prevent that, let's check that squares x is not empty so that we are sure that a player has made a move in this position. This function is return the string, so let's indicate that also. Next, if there is a winner, we need to return before the updates the square click event. Now we need to indicate who is the winner. To do that, I will add another div. Inside that div add a new paragraph tag with bootstrap styles of font size 2, padding 1, and margin top of 0. Inside that, let's render a new status, state variable. Let's implement that state variable. The type is a string and the initial value is an empty string. To reset the game, I will add a new button after the paragraph tag. The button content is restart. Let's add some bootstrap styles to this button. Give it the bootstrap button class, secondary button, and margin bottom of 0. To handle the click event, I will add a new function called handleRestart. Let's implement this function. When the user clicks the restart button, we need to set all the squares array strings to empty. Let's do that. Next, we need to set the winning status. To do that, I will use the useEffect hook of React. useEffect is a React hook that runs the provided function after rendering. It monitors changes in the specified dependencies and runs the effect whenever any of these dependencies change. The dependencies array, squares, is extern, tells React to run this effect whenever squares or is extern changes. In the game's draw condition, if there is no winner yet, and check if all the squares are filled. If both conditions are true, it means all squares are filled and there is no winner, resulting in a draw. Let's update the status message to indicate a draw. Next, if a winner is found, the getWinner function returns the X or O string to indicate the winner. Let's update the status message to indicate the winner. If neither a draw nor a winner is found, it updates the status to indicate whose turn is next. If his X turn is true, it's X turn, false, it's O turn. Let's save all and check the update. You can see all the status are working correctly. This is a simple TicTacToe game interface. In this video, I created a simple single-player tic-tac-toe game interface with React and TypeScript. I covered setting up the game grid, handling player turns, detecting wins and draws, and implementing a reset feature. In the next video, I will explain how to create a SignalR connection, manage online users, create private rooms, and play with online users. We'll continue our journey as we develop an online tic-tac-toe game using React, TypeScript, and SignalR. Join me as we delve into the fascinating world of real-time web applications. Please stay tuned throughout this series to learn a lot. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell.